My parents demanded $100,000 from me for good upbringing, and my golden child sister attacked me with a police baton. I'm feeling lost and broken right now, and I need to share my story. Maybe it will help me make sense of everything. So here goes. Growing up, I always felt like I was an afterthought in my own family. My parents, Robert and Susan, were consumed by their careers. My dad was a corporate lawyer who spent more time in boardrooms than at home. My mom was a high-powered executive at a marketing firm, constantly traveling for work. They had my older sister, Sarah, who was the golden child, the prodigy. I, on the other hand, was just there. From a young age, it was clear that Sarah was the star. She excelled at everything she did, straight A's, captain of the soccer team, president of the student council. My parents showered her with praise and attention. Meanwhile, I struggled just to keep up. I remember sitting at the dinner table, listening to them discuss Sarah's latest accomplishments while I quietly ate my food unnoticed. School was no refuge. If anything, it was worse. I was small for my age, which made me an easy target. Bullies like Jason and his gang would push me around, call me names, and humiliate me in front of others. I remember one time in 5th grade when they locked me in a janitor's closet during recess. I banged on the door and screamed for help, but no one came. I was stuck there until a janitor found me hours later, tear-streaked and shaking. My teachers didn't help much either. They were too busy dealing with the more disruptive kids to notice the quiet boy in the back of the class who never raised his hand. If I didn't understand something, I was too afraid to ask for help. I'd just muddle through as best I could, my grades a constant source of disappointment for my parents. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" they'd say. "Sarah never has these problems." Home was supposed to be a safe place, but it wasn't. My parents were strict, and their expectations were sky high. If I didn't get straight A's, I was grounded. No TV, no video games, no friends over. But the worst punishment was being locked in my room. They installed a lock on the outside of my door, and if I did something wrong, they'd lock me in for hours, sometimes the whole weekend. I wasn't allowed out even to use the bathroom. I had to hold it or use a bucket they put in my room. It was humiliating and terrifying. One night, when I was about 12, my parents had a huge fight. My dad had found out my mom was having an affair. The yelling woke me up, and I crept to the top of the stairs to listen. I heard my dad shouting, "How could you do this to us, to the kids?" My mom yelled back, "You're never here. What do you expect?" They didn't notice me, and I felt like my world was falling apart. The next day, they acted like nothing had happened, but things were different. My mom became more distant, and my dad threw himself even more into his work. By the time I got to high school, I had learned to keep my head down and stay invisible. I joined the debate team, hoping it would help me gain some confidence, but it didn't. I was too nervous to speak in front of others, and I never got picked for the big competitions. The one time I did compete, I froze on stage, unable to get a word out. The audience's laughter still haunts me. Despite all this, I managed to scrape together decent enough grades to apply to college. I dreamed of going to a place far away where no one knew me, and I could start fresh. I got accepted into a state university a few hours from home. It wasn't Ivy League like Sarah's school, but it was my chance to escape. University was supposed to be my new beginning, but it didn't turn out that way. My parents pressured me into choosing a business major, saying it was the only way to secure a good future. I had no interest in business, but I went along with it to keep them off my back. The classes were hard, and I struggled to keep up. The old feelings of inadequacy crept back, stronger than ever. I tried to make friends, but my social skills were lacking. I spent most of my time in my dorm room, studying or playing video games to escape the loneliness. I had a roommate, Alex, who was friendly enough, but we didn't have much in common. He was outgoing and popular, always going to parties and bringing people back to our room. I envied him, but couldn't bring myself to join in. One night, Alex invited me to a party. "Come on, man. You need to get out and have some fun," he said. I reluctantly agreed, hoping it would help me feel less alone. The party was loud and chaotic, and I quickly felt overwhelmed. I found a quiet corner and stayed there, sipping my drink and watching everyone else have a good time. That's when I met Emily. Emily was different. She was quiet like me, and we quickly bonded over our shared discomfort at the party. We talked for hours, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like someone understood me. We exchanged numbers and started hanging out regularly. Emily became my lifeline, the one person who made me feel like I mattered. But things took a dark turn during my sophomore year. My grades were slipping, and I was on academic probation. My parents were furious. They blamed Emily, saying she was a distraction. They threatened to cut off my tuition if I didn't break up with her. I was torn between the only person who made me feel happy and the fear of disappointing my parents even more. One weekend, I went home to try to talk to my parents. I hoped to explain how much Emily meant to me and how she was helping me cope. Instead, they locked me in my room. "You're not leaving until you agree to break up with her," my dad said. I spent the entire weekend in there, feeling like I was suffocating. When they finally let me out, I felt broken and defeated. I called Emily and told her we couldn't see each other anymore. She was devastated, and so was I. After that, I fell into a deep depression. I barely went to class, and my grades continued to drop. I started drinking to numb the pain. One night, I drank so much I blacked out and woke up in the hospital. The doctor said I had alcohol poisoning and was lucky to be alive. My parents came to see me, but instead of comforting me, they berated me for being so irresponsible. "You're a failure," my dad said. "You're throwing your life away." I felt like there was no escape. Everywhere I turned, there was disappointment and failure. I started having panic attacks, unable to breathe, feeling like the walls were closing in on me. I saw a counselor at the university, but it didn't help much. I couldn't open up about what was really going on. I was too ashamed. During my junior year, I reached a breaking point. I couldn't take the pressure anymore. I dropped out of school and moved back home. My parents were livid. They called me a quitter, a loser. They locked me in my room again, hoping to teach me a lesson. I spent days in there, staring at the walls, feeling like my life was over. When they finally let me out, I knew I had to get away. I packed a bag and left without telling anyone where I was going. I found a cheap apartment in a nearby city and got a job at a local bookstore. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I cut off all contact with my parents and tried to rebuild my life. It's been a few years since then. I'm still struggling, but I am trying to find my way. I've been seeing a therapist, and it's helping a bit. I've reconnected with Emily, and we're slowly rebuilding our relationship. I'm not sure what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time, I feel a glimmer of hope. Hey, Reddit. It's been a while since I shared my story, and I wanted to give you all an update. A lot has happened since I last posted, and I'm finally starting to feel like my life is heading in the right direction. Buckle up, because this is going to be a long one. After I moved to the city and got that job at the bookstore, I started seeing a therapist named Dr. Michaels. At first, I was skeptical. I had seen a counselor before, but it didn't help much. But Dr. Michaels was different. He was patient, understanding, and genuinely cared about helping me heal. We started with weekly sessions, and gradually, I began to open up about my childhood, my parents, and all the pain I had been carrying for so long. One of the first things Dr. Michaels did was help me understand that my parents' neglect and the abuse I suffered at their hands were not my fault. For so long, I had internalized their criticisms and believed that I was worthless. It took time, but I slowly started to see that I deserved better. I deserved to be happy. Dr. Michaels introduced me to various coping mechanisms to deal with my anxiety and depression. We practiced mindfulness and meditation, and I started journaling my thoughts and feelings. It was tough at first, but I began to notice a change. I was sleeping better, my panic attacks became less frequent, and I started to feel a little lighter. After about 5 months of therapy, I felt like a new person. I wasn't completely healed, but I was in a much better place. During one of our sessions, Dr. Michaels asked me about my dreams and aspirations. I realized that I had always wanted to work in graphic design. I loved art and had a knack for creating visually appealing content. It was something I had dabbled in during high school, but had given up on due to my parents' insistence on a more practical career path. With Dr. Michaels' encouragement, I decided to pursue my passion. I enrolled in an online graphic design course to build up my skills and started working on a portfolio. It was a lot of work, but I was excited about the future for the first time in years. As I was working on my portfolio, I also started applying for jobs in the field. I faced a lot of rejections, which was discouraging, but I didn't give up. After a few months, I landed an interview with a small marketing agency. The interview went well, and they offered me a junior designer position. I was ecstatic. It wasn't my dream job yet, but it was a foot in the door. I threw myself into my work, determined to prove myself. I worked long hours, took on extra projects, and constantly sought feedback to improve. My hard work paid off. Within 6 months, I was promoted to a mid-level designer position. I continued to excel, and 2 years later, I was promoted again to a senior designer role. During this time, I also decided to focus on my physical health. I joined a gym near my apartment and started working out regularly. At first, I felt out of place, but I soon found a group of like-minded individuals who shared my goals. We started working out together, pushing each other to improve. This group became my support system, my new family. One of the guys I met at the gym was Jake. He was a fitness trainer and had a background in business management. We hit it off right away, bonding over our shared love of fitness and our dreams of starting our own business. Over time, we developed an idea for a fitness app that would help people create personalized workout plans and track their progress. Jake and I started working on the app in our spare time. We spent countless nights and weekends developing the concept, creating prototypes and testing them out. It was exhausting but exhilarating. We knew we had something special. We needed funding to take our app to the next level, so we started pitching our idea to potential investors. It was a daunting process, filled with highs and lows. Some investors loved our idea, while others dismissed it outright. But we kept pushing, determined to make our dream a reality. One day, we got a call from an investor named Laura. She had seen our pitch and was interested in meeting with us. Laura was a seasoned entrepreneur with a track record of successful investments. We were nervous but hopeful. The meeting went better than we could have imagined. Laura loved our concept and saw the potential in our app. She offered to invest in our startup and mentor us through the process. With Laura's investment and guidance, we were able to hire a small team and start developing the app in earnest. It was a whirlwind of activity, and I loved every minute of it. Seeing our idea come to life was incredibly rewarding. Our app, FitTrack, launched 6 months later. It quickly gained traction, and the user base grew steadily. We received positive feedback from users who loved the personalized workout plans and the easy-to-use interface. It was amazing to see how something we had created was making a difference in people's lives. As our app's popularity grew, so did our business. We expanded our team, added new features, and even started offering online fitness classes. Jake and I were constantly brainstorming new ideas and ways to improve the app. It was challenging, but we were passionate about what we were doing. Around this time, I reconnected with Emily. We had kept in touch sporadically after our breakup, but I had been hesitant to reach out. Now that I was in a better place, I felt ready to reconnect. We started talking again, and it was like no time had passed. She was still the same kind, understanding person I had fallen for in college. Emily and I started dating again, and it was better than ever. She supported my dreams and was my rock during the stressful times. We moved in together, and our relationship grew stronger every day. I felt truly happy for the first time in my life. 2 years after launching FitTrack, we received an offer to buy our company. It was a life-changing amount of money, and Jake and I had to seriously consider it. After a lot of discussion, we decided to sell. It was a bittersweet decision, but we knew it was the right one. The sale went through, and suddenly I was financially secure in a way I had never imagined. With the success of FitTrack, I wanted to give back. I started volunteering at a local community center, teaching graphic design to underprivileged kids. It was incredibly rewarding to see them develop their skills and gain confidence. I also started donating to mental health organizations, wanting to help others who were struggling like I had. Life was finally good. I had a successful career, a loving relationship, and a sense of purpose. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. About a year after selling FitTrack, I got a call from my sister, Sarah. She was in tears, saying that our dad had had a heart attack. I hadn't spoken to my parents in years, but I couldn't ignore this. I went to the hospital, feeling a mix of anger, fear, and sadness. When I saw my dad lying in the hospital bed, looking frail and vulnerable, all my anger melted away. He was still my dad despite everything. My mom was there too, and she broke down when she saw me. We talked, really talked, for the first time in years. They apologized for everything, and I could see the sincerity in their eyes. It didn't erase the past, but it was a start. My dad recovered, and we slowly started rebuilding our relationship. It wasn't easy, and there were a lot of difficult conversations, but we were making progress. I introduced them to Emily, and they adored her. My mom even started attending therapy to work on her issues. Reconnecting with my parents brought a sense of closure that I hadn't realized I needed. It was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I could finally move forward without the burden of the past holding me back. Professionally, I decided to start another venture. I teamed up with Laura again, and we launched a new startup focused on mental health and wellness. It combined my passion for graphic design and my desire to help others. The startup, Mindspace, provided resources, support, and tools for people struggling with mental health issues. Mindspace took off, and we quickly gained a dedicated user base. The feedback from our users was incredible, and it was fulfilling to know we were making a difference. Our team grew, and we partnered with mental health professionals to offer comprehensive support. In my personal life, Emily and I got engaged. We had a small, intimate ceremony with close friends and family. It was a beautiful day, and I felt incredibly lucky to have found someone who understood and supported me so completely. A few months after our wedding, we decided to start a family. Emily and I were overjoyed when we found out she was pregnant. The pregnancy went smoothly, and we welcomed our daughter, Lily, into the world. Holding her for the first time, I was overwhelmed with love and determination to be the best father I could be. As Lily grew, I made sure to be present and involved in her life. I wanted to give her the childhood I never had. I took her to the park, read her bedtime stories, and taught her how to ride a bike. Watching her grow and thrive brought me more happiness than I ever thought possible. Through it all, I continued to see Dr. Michaels. Therapy had become a cornerstone of my life, helping me navigate the challenges and changes. Dr. Michaels supported me through the ups and downs, and I knew I wouldn't be where I was without his guidance. I'm back with another update, and this one's a doozy. Buckle up because things have gotten really intense. I thought my life had finally stabilized, but it seems like the past never truly lets go. Here's what happened. 3 months ago, I was living the dream. My business, Mindspace, was thriving, and my family life was perfect. Emily, Lily, and I were happier than ever. Then, out of the blue, my parents showed up at our doorstep. I hadn't seen them in a while, but they looked different, angrier, more desperate. I invited them in, curious and a bit wary. My dad wasted no time getting to the point. "We want our share of the app," he said, his voice cold. "We deserve it for raising you." I was stunned. "What are you talking about?" I asked. "You had nothing to do with Mindspace." My mom jumped in, her eyes blazing. "We deserve compensation for all the years we took care of you. 100,000 should cover it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You can't be serious," I said. "I worked hard for everything I have. You neglected and abused me for years." My dad's face twisted with anger. "You ungrateful brat, you owe us." I told them to leave, but they refused. Things escalated, and eventually I had to call the police to get them out of my house. I thought that would be the end of it, but I was wrong. A few days later, I received a court summons. My parents were suing me for inequality and demanding a share of Mindspace. The court case was scheduled to last 3 days. I hired a lawyer, Mr. Anderson, to represent me. He was experienced and confident, but I was still nervous. How could my parents think they had a right to my success after everything they had done? On the first day of the trial, my parents' lawyer, Miss Crawford, laid out their case. She claimed that my parents had provided for me throughout my childhood and deserved a share of my earnings as compensation for their good treatment. She painted a picture of loving, dedicated parents who had sacrificed everything for their ungrateful son. Mr. Anderson countered by presenting evidence of my parents' neglect and abuse. He called witnesses, including Dr. Michaels, who testified about the psychological damage I had suffered. He also brought up my hospital records from when I was locked in my room and the times I had sought medical help for anxiety and depression. The second day was grueling. My parents took the stand and lied through their teeth. They claimed they had always supported me and that I had turned my back on them once I became successful. My dad even broke down in fake tears, saying how much it hurt him to see his son reject him. When it was my turn to testify, I told the truth. I described the years of neglect, the abuse, the nights locked in my room. I spoke about the bullying at school and how my parents had never cared. I shared how I had rebuilt my life despite their treatment, not because of it. The third day was the most intense. Both sides made their closing arguments. Miss Crawford accused me of fabricating stories to tarnish my parents' reputation. She claimed I was a spiteful son trying to cut my parents out of my life. Mr. Anderson's closing argument was powerful. He pointed out the inconsistencies in my parents' testimonies and highlighted the evidence of their neglect and abuse. He emphasized that my success was a result of my hard work and determination, not their support. After deliberating, the judge ruled in my favor. He stated that my parents had no claim to my business or my earnings and that their behavior was reprehensible. He also granted my request to terminate their parental rights. It was a huge relief, but it didn't feel like a victory. I was exhausted and emotionally drained. For the next 3 months, life returned to a semblance of normalcy. Emily and I focused on our family, and I threw myself into work and fitness. Things seemed to be settling down. But then, one night, everything changed. I had just finished a late-night workout at the gym and was walking home. The streets were quiet, and I was lost in thought. Suddenly, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around and saw my sister Sarah standing there. The golden child, the perfect one. "Sarah?" I said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" Before I could react, she pulled out a police baton and swung it at me. The first blow caught me in the ribs, and I stumbled back, gasping in pain. She didn't stop. She kept hitting me, each blow more vicious than the last. I tried to defend myself, but she was relentless. "You ruined everything," she screamed. "You destroyed our family." I fell to the ground, unable to catch my breath. The pain was excruciating. Sarah stood over me, her face twisted with rage. "You're not even one of us," she spat. "You were adopted. They never wanted you." With that, she delivered one final blow to my head, and everything went black. When I came to, I was in the hospital. Emily was by my side, tears streaming down her face. "You're okay," she whispered. "You're going to be okay." I was in agony, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional turmoil. Sarah's words echoed in my mind. "Adopted. They never wanted you." It was like my entire life had been a lie. Over the next few days, the police came to take my statement. Sarah had been arrested and was facing multiple charges, including assault and battery. I didn't want to press charges, but the state was taking over the case due to the severity of my injuries. As I lay in the hospital bed, I had plenty of time to think. I remembered all the times I had felt out of place, all the times my parents had treated me differently. It made sense now. I had always wondered why they seemed to favor Sarah, why they were so harsh with me. Knowing the truth didn't make it hurt any less. Emily was my rock during this time. She stayed with me every day, helping me through the physical therapy and the emotional healing. Dr. Michaels also visited, and we talked about the revelation and how to process it. It was a lot to take in, but I was determined not to let it break me. After I was discharged, life was different. I had to come to terms with my new reality. I spent more time with Emily and Lily, cherishing every moment. I threw myself into work at Mindspace, finding solace in helping others. 3 months later, I was back at the gym, determined to rebuild my strength. I had a lot of support from my gym friends, and Jake was especially helpful. He pushed me to keep going, even when it was tough. One night, after a particularly grueling workout, I was sitting in the locker room, catching my breath. Jake sat down next to me. "You're doing great, man," he said. "You've come a long way." "Thanks," I replied, feeling a mix of exhaustion and gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you." Jake looked thoughtful. "You know, I've been thinking, we should expand Mindspace, add a fitness component, combine mental and physical wellness." The idea sparked something in me. "That's a great idea," I said. "We could create a holistic approach to health." Over the next few weeks, Jake and I worked on the new concept. We called it MindBody, a platform that integrated mental health resources with personalized fitness plans. We pitched the idea to Laura, and she was on board immediately. With her support, we started developing the new platform. As we worked on MindBody, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The pain of the past few months started to fade, replaced by excitement for the future. Emily was incredibly supportive, and our relationship grew even stronger. We were a team, facing life's challenges together. One evening, after a long day of work, Emily and I were sitting on the couch, watching Lily play. "I'm proud of you," she said, squeezing my hand. "You've come so far." I smiled, feeling a warmth in my chest. "I couldn't have done it without you," I replied. "You're my everything." Life wasn't perfect, but it was good. I had faced my demons and come out stronger. The future was bright, and I was ready for whatever came next. But as they say, life is full of surprises, and just when you think you have everything figured out, it throws you a curveball. 3 months after launching Mind Body, I received an unexpected visitor. It was a woman named Margaret. She looked to be in her early 50s, with kind eyes and a nervous smile. "Hello," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "My name is Margaret. I'm your biological mother." I was stunned. "What?" I managed to say. Margaret took a deep breath. "I know this is a lot to take in. I gave you up for adoption when you were born. I've been looking for you ever since." My mind was racing. "Why now?" I asked, feeling a mix of curiosity and anger. "Why after all these years?" Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't have a choice back then. I was young and scared. But I've always regretted it. I never stopped thinking about you. I didn't know what to say. This was too much, too soon. I need some time to process this," I said finally. "I can't do this right now." Margaret nodded, looking heartbroken. "I understand. I just wanted you to know the truth. If you ever want to talk, I'll be here." With that, she left, leaving me with a whirlwind of emotions. I didn't know what to think. Part of me wanted to know more about her, to understand where I came from. But another part of me felt betrayed and confused. I talked to Emily and Dr. Michaels about it, trying to make sense of everything. They both encouraged me to take my time and not rush into anything. It was a lot to process, and I needed to do it on my terms. Over the next few weeks, I focused on work and my family, trying to push the encounter with Margaret to the back of my mind. But it was always there, lurking, waiting to be dealt with. One day, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Margaret. She had written down her story, explaining everything. She talked about her life, the circumstances that led to my adoption, and how much she had wanted to keep me but couldn't. Reading her letter was emotional. It didn't erase the past, but it gave me some closure. I decided to reach out to her, to meet and talk, and see where it led. We met at a coffee shop, and for the first time, I got to know my biological mother. Margaret was kind and genuine, and as we talked, I felt a connection. It wasn't easy, and there were a lot of emotions to work through, but it was a start. Emily and I decided to involve her in our lives slowly. We introduced her to Lily, and they bonded quickly. It was heartwarming to see. Margaret became a part of our family, and over time, the wounds began to heal. Life was moving forward. Mind Body was a success, my family was happy, and I was rebuilding my relationship with Margaret. But the shadows of the past still lingered, and I knew I had to face them head-on. One day I received a letter from Sarah. She was in prison, serving time for the assault. In her letter, she apologized for everything and asked for forgiveness. She explained how our parents had manipulated her, filling her head with lies about me. Reading her letter was painful, but it also brought a sense of closure. I wasn't ready to forgive her, but I was willing to listen. I wrote back, telling her that I needed time but appreciated her reaching out. Over the next few months, Sarah and I exchanged letters. It was a slow process, but we began to rebuild our relationship. She was remorseful and seemed genuinely changed. It didn't erase the past, but it was a start. Throughout this journey, I learned a lot about myself and what it means to heal. Life is messy and complicated, and there are no easy answers. But with the support of my loved ones and a determination to move forward, I found my way. It's been a while since my last update. Life has continued to move forward in surprising and beautiful ways. Emily and I have been blessed with 2 more children, and I want to share our journey as a family. Here's what's been happening. Not long after reconnecting with Margaret and rebuilding my relationship with Sarah, Emily and I decided to expand our family. We loved being parents to Lily and wanted to give her siblings to grow up with. A few months later, we found out Emily was pregnant with twins. The news filled us with joy and excitement, but also a bit of nervousness. Raising twins would be a new challenge. The pregnancy went smoothly, and on a bright morning in June, our twins, Noah and Olivia, were born. They were perfect in every way, and our hearts were overflowing with love. Lily was thrilled to be a big sister and took on the role with enthusiasm. She was always eager to help, whether it was fetching diapers or singing lullabies to soothe them. As the twins grew, our home was filled with laughter and chaos. Noah was adventurous and curious, always exploring and getting into mischief. Olivia, on the other hand, was more reserved but had a keen sense of observation. She loved to watch her brother's antics and often followed him around, making sure he stayed out of too much trouble. When Noah and Olivia turned 3, it was time for them to start preschool. We found a wonderful local preschool that focused on creativity and social skills. Dropping them off on their first day was bittersweet. Emily and I watched as they bravely walked into the classroom, holding hands. They turned back and waved, and we knew they were ready for this new adventure. Preschool was a whirlwind of activities and new experiences. Noah and Olivia made friends quickly. Noah's best friend was a boy named Ethan, who shared his love for exploring. The two of them were inseparable, often coming home with stories of their adventures on the playground. Olivia became close friends with a girl named Sophie, who was as quiet and thoughtful as she was. They enjoyed sitting together and working on arts and crafts projects. One day, we received a call from their teacher, Mrs. Johnson. She told us that Noah had stood up to a bully who was picking on Ethan. He was very brave, she said. He told the bully that it wasn't nice to hurt others and that everyone should be friends. Emily and I were incredibly proud of our little boy's courage and sense of justice. Olivia also had her moment to shine. During a school art show, she proudly displayed a painting she had worked on for weeks. It was a beautiful depiction of our family, full of bright colors and smiling faces. When she explained the painting to her class, she said, "This is my family. We love each other very much." Her teacher told us later that her presentation had brought tears to many eyes, including hers. As preschool came to an end, we prepared for the next big step, kindergarten. Noah and Olivia were excited to start school, but there were also some nerves. On their first day, Emily and I walked them to the bus stop. Lily, now in 3rd grade, held their hands and reassured them. "You're going to love school," she said. "It's so much fun." Kindergarten was full of new experiences and learning. Noah continued to be the adventurous one, excelling in subjects like science and physical education. He loved the hands-on experiments and outdoor activities. Olivia, with her keen observation skills, excelled in reading and art. She quickly became the teacher's helper, always eager to assist with classroom tasks. One day we received a call from the school nurse. Noah had fallen off the monkey bars and hurt his arm. My heart sank as I rushed to the school to pick him up. When I arrived, I found him sitting in the nurse's office, cradling his arm and looking brave but in pain. The nurse had already called Emily, and she was on her way. We took Noah to the hospital, where the doctor confirmed he had a small fracture. They put his arm in a cast, and he was a trooper through it all. He proudly showed off his cast to his classmates the next day, and they all signed it with colorful markers. Olivia was especially attentive, making sure her brother was comfortable and helping him with tasks that required both hands. Meanwhile, Olivia had her own challenges. She struggled with math and often felt frustrated. Emily and I worked with her every evening, using games and puzzles to make learning fun. Slowly but surely, she improved, and the proud look on her face when she finally solved a tough problem was priceless. As the years went by, our children continued to grow and thrive. Lily became a role model for her younger siblings, always setting a good example and helping them with their schoolwork. She joined the school's soccer team and became a star player, leading her team to victory in several matches. Noah and Olivia moved up through the grades, each finding their own path. Noah joined the science club and participated in various competitions. His curiosity and enthusiasm led him to win several awards. Olivia, with her artistic talent, won a regional art contest, her painting displayed in the town hall for everyone to admire. One particularly memorable event was the annual school talent show. Noah decided to perform a magic act, while Olivia chose to sing a song she had written herself. The night of the show, the auditorium was packed with parents and students. Noah's act was a hit. He had the audience laughing and clapping with his clever tricks. When it was Olivia's turn, she stood on the stage, a little nervous but determined. As she sang, her voice clear and sweet, the audience was spellbound. By the time she finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. Emily and I couldn't have been prouder. However, not everything was smooth sailing. One day we received a call from the school counselor. Olivia had been having trouble with a group of girls who were excluding her and making fun of her artwork. We were heartbroken to hear this and immediately set up a meeting with the counselor and her teacher. They assured us they would address the situation and work to create a more inclusive environment. At home, we talked to Olivia about how she was feeling and encouraged her to stand up for herself. We also enrolled her in an after-school art program where she could connect with other kids who shared her passion. It wasn't easy, but Olivia found her voice and began to stand up to the bullies. With time, the situation improved, and she regained her confidence. Noah also faced his share of challenges. He struggled with attention issues in class and found it hard to stay focused. After discussing it with his teacher and a specialist, we decided to have him evaluated for ADHD. The diagnosis was a relief in some ways, as it gave us a clear path to help him. We worked with his teachers to create a learning plan that suited his needs, and Noah thrived with the extra support. As the twins approached middle school, we were once again filled with a mix of excitement and apprehension. Middle school brought new challenges and opportunities. Noah joined the robotics club, where he built and programmed robots for competitions. His team even won a regional championship, and he was invited to speak at a local tech conference about his project. Olivia, meanwhile, continued to excel in art. She was selected to join an advanced art class and had her work featured in several local exhibitions. Her confidence grew, and she even started teaching younger kids in the after-school program she had once attended. Throughout all these experiences, Emily and I remained deeply involved in our children's lives. We attended every school event, volunteered for field trips, and supported them through their triumphs and challenges. Our family bond grew stronger, and the love we shared was the foundation of everything we did.